Welcome to another episode of Steve's 2 Cents, a short video series about specific gambling topics from yours truly, Big Steve, a full-time gambler from Australia. This week's topic is tape/fight research.
Shouts out Big Steve.
So tape/fight research is super important in my opinion. There was a time when I used to just not tape fights and just go off memory, and I didn't want to get too into it. I didn't want to become writing notes and become obsessed, but I don't think you can make money long term without actually looking at tape. You forget things. I personally tape every single fight, every single opponent, even if I've taped it a million times. Sometimes you can get away with it, but more often than not, I find that just a quick little overview is the best thing to do. Even if you keep a spreadsheet like some people do, I'm more of a visual guy, and I have to refresh every single time. So obviously, taping UFC and taping regionals is a bit different for me. First things first, I'll get into a few essentials with tape. So I think you need a tape index of some sort, which is like a program where all the fights are hyperlinked for you. You can just click on it and you pay like $5-6 a month. Small price to pay for all the time you save from Googling fights. I watch all my fights on ×2 speed. Back in the day, I used to watch that stuff on slow motion, and I think it's a bit of a time killer, waste of time, I should say. You can see a lot of things that are important on 2x speed. If you watch plenty of fights of that fighter, you can catch those things, like if he's low volume, if he keeps throwing the jab, if he likes the overhand right, if he's a calf kicker. You can see all these things on 2x speed even better, right? Because they will just stick out when everything else is super fast. Those things will come to you quick. So I would even get a manual speed adjustment, like a thing for Google Chrome, which you can just adjust, so like 5 parts, for example. It's like a YouTube times speed update. I get a manual one where I can just adjust it with the keys, go 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 and slow it down, or go past 2 speed as well sometimes. I think it's important to have tape index. I use those. I used to have multiple ones, especially for regionals. Regionals are really hard to find. And I have a fast speed increaser, whatever you want to call it. I can't even get the name right. And I use that too. In terms of actual taping fights, when it comes to UFC, so obviously I've taped UFC fights a bunch of times. Some of these fighters I've been watching since 2009. There's obviously no point taping fights a billion times. I usually do just a refresher. When there's a fight set up, what I try to do is I go straight to the relevant tape. If someone is fighting a wrestler, for example, I go through his level of competition and I try to look for fights where he's fought wrestlers, right? It sounds like common sense, and just go straight from there. Even if the fight is a long time ago, then I just go back there, look at the fights. Sometimes I don't have to watch the whole fight. I can go straight to the takedown defense. I can go to his bottom game, etc., and just, that saves me a lot of time. And I can see if he's easily taken down, I can kind of cap the fight nice and easy. I don't have to waste too much time, and I can say pass, or there's value there, or if he's stopping takedowns, etc. If there's no relevant fights, I go on UFC stats, and I try find times where he was taken down in his UFC career, and I just go straight to those fights. Sometimes I'll have to watch more fights than I like to, just to see a little bit of takedown defense in each fight over, maybe 5 or 10 years, and just try piece it together. Sometimes you have to fill in the blanks, and obviously I don't like doing that a lot of the time, but if it's a big dog and you can see he's kind of okay takedown defense based on what you've seen, then that's fine, because the number, you're happy to take a risk at that big number. Obviously with favorites, it's a little bit more risky. The UFC fighters, I know who's wrestler, who isn't, and I look for relevant fights. If not, and if they don't have many wrestlers, I just kind of look at, last fights of each guy and try make a relevant capping decision. Then after everything is done, I write my notes down. I write each fighter and I write what they're good at, what they do. The big things like southpaw, wrestler likes to go for takedowns, gasses out in round 3. I try to be detailed as possible. Sometimes I don't write this down, and I find that even though I don't go back to read my notes, and I always retape even though I've written notes down for one fighter 10 times, I find that writing it down on a piece of paper kind of helps me get my thoughts and finalize it, if that makes any sense, right? Keeping it in the brain and then moving on to another fight, you might lose it and you might forget something crucial. So I just write it down. It's kind of like people journaling or diarying right before they go to bed, so they remember things that they did during the day, or they remember to do stuff tomorrow. That's what I do. I just quickly go through the fight. Sometimes I can smash through it 2x speed, 1 or 3 fights, skip the whole fight, and I go, cool, he's a wrestler, he's got bad takedown defense, but it can be dropped, and I write that down, and that really helps me to remember it. And I even underline it, and then I write how the fight's going to go. I cap the fighters, I look at relevant tape, I skip through it if there's no relevant tape sometimes, and it's hard to get a read. quickly write down my notes on each fighter, the most important things, underline it, and write how I think the fight's going to go and what the potential play would be. Now for regionals is obviously a little bit different. A lot of the time I come across fighters I've never seen in my life, right? They don't have 10, 15 fights in the UFC at the highest level. And Contender Series obviously is a good thing, is a good example. So Contender Series, right, there's a lot of lack of tape, lack of footage, relevant footage as well. You might have 3 fights of each guy. It might be 10 years ago, it might be 5 years ago. Might be no takedown defense, for example, and this guy's a wrestler. And you just have to fill in the blanks, Well, with that, if I have a lack of tape, I slow it down. I don't go 2 times and I just try get as much information as I can. I still write my notes. I write lack of tape, dog or pass, etc., etc. And this comes with time. I also think 2-time speed and things like this, it's not for everyone early, but I'm in my 5th or 6th year of gambling, full time. I've become so immersed with MMA and taping. It's not even a 9 to 5 thing. It's, Monday to Sunday. If you do anything for long enough hours, it's going to come easy. I built this skill where I can just skim through fights and I can just get a read, an accurate read where I'm proud of to put money on it, big money on it. Rarely I would actually double tape, and I'm trying to avoid this so I don't waste much time. I try to trust my initial lead. Sometimes I will double tape, like for our Contender Series, I double taped and I would let things simmer. I would think about it, and then I'll retape the day before and after weigh-ins and just slow it down and not do ×2 speed, and then I'll get a nice good lean. And I don't mind doing that just to, kind of squeeze out profit on low-level cards, regional cards and Contender Series cards where people just kind of baseline tape and then move on. I don't mind going deep and, looking at their Instagram and, seeing if they've been hurt once in like a dominant fight and then saying, all right, this dog has value, you can potentially hurt him. But yeah, more often than not, I do the same thing every single time. I also forgot to mention, at the end of each tape, I like to do a little bit of wiki capping. So I go, it's what's called going through the record, or Wikipedia capping, going through the record, or topology capping. And after I'm done taping and I write my notes, I look over the record. This is especially for regional guys. I look over the record top to bottom, and that helps, sometimes kind of get a clearer picture, because you can be taping the fighter and writing down like, oh, this guy's a savage, he's dominating everyone, he's knocking everyone out, and you finish that off. And then you come back and you finalize things and you look at his record, and it's all 0-0 guys, 0-10 guys with horrible records and losing records, and there are a lot of squash matches. And then it kind of changes your perspective of things. You were taping him thinking one thing, and then you topology cap and wiki cap and you see his record, and now you have a whole different understanding, right? A whole different picture. And then you go to his opponent who you thought was bad, but all his opponents are decent. There's a big aspect to the whole capping game, but that's what I do, right? So I go through the fights, look at relevant fights, write my notes on each guy, write their strengths and weaknesses, write how the fight will go every single time, and then I finish off with a little wiki cap, go over it, see their record. I even wiki cap their opponents, see how bad their opponents are, if they've knocked everyone out, see if they're chinny. There's a bit of detail I go into, but that's about it. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. Like and subscribe. Let me know if there's any other ideas you'd like me to put out on Steve's 2 Cents. Follow me on Twitter, join the exclusive Discord, and yeah, thank you for listening.